well, famous for two things in my memory, Blues and Hosses Flat, and of course, Shiny Stockings. But
Yeah.
he's written so much music. I did, over Christmas, we did a show with one of the singers from the New York Voices, Darman Meter, and we did an arrangement of Frank's on Skylark that was just exquisite. And I'm thinking, goodness, I thought Darman had written it, and he said, no, that's Frank's chart. And I looked at the title on the title page, and there was Frank's name. And I said, yeah, this guy he was a fantastic musician.
Yeah, well, I think everything Frank ever wrote was exquisite. I have practically everything that he's ever written, and Frank and I were great friends. And speaking about Frank Foster, we both played with Frank Foster's band.
You know, that was a fate. When I was in college, one of my dear friends, who's a jazz fan, who lived in the same dormitory building as I, we became friendly because of our love of jazz, and he used to hear me playing in the lounges, in the student lounges on campus. And he was very, even at that time, he was a very good sound engineer. He had a Crown stereo recorder. He had very good mics. And we used to go into Wilman Auditorium, and he would, rather, and record Warren Chassan's group and Roger Kellaway's group, whoever, so many people. He did the first recording, I think, of the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Band live at the Vanguard, which has now been re-released on he's got a label called Resonance Records, which now can be bought on the internet or wherever there's a record store, wherever that is.
And that was about 40 years ago.
Yes, and what happened was that there was some mix-up in the piano player that was supposed to be playing with Frank's big band. And my friend, who was always a crusader for people, a good friend as well, but he's still the same way. He finds singers that are not famous and he records them. He moved out to LA. He's got a studio out there with 4 cameras, and he can record the visual as well as the sound. And anyway, the piano player got mixed up in the day of recording, and so my friend George Clavin walked over to Frank and says, hey, my friend can play piano. and he said, would you like him to sit in until the piano player gets here? Well, the piano player never got there, so I got to play for like 3 hours, and you were probably there. We didn't know each other really that well.
That's wild.
But I happened to be in the old expression, being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And I got to play with this band. And I was so thrilled. I don't think I slept for 3 days because I was so excited.
Yeah.
And later, I was a senior in college. That would have been 1966. I went back to Atlanta for the summer, and I got a phone call from Woody Herman, his manager, and he said, Frank Foster just subbed with the band for over the weekend, and we're looking for a piano player, and Frank recommended you. So from this, happenstance at Columbia University in Walman Auditorium changed my life, literally changed my life. And I can lead my career to this moment because of Frank Foster and my friend George Clavin.
Giving me goosebumps here.
Well, it was an amazing thing. I think about it. I don't think about it 24/7, but when it occurs to me, it's just fantastic to have been in that place at that time.
Yeah. Well, another very, very coincidental. Frank Foster was the guy who recommended me to play with Woody Herman's band.
There you go. See, there are people in our lives that seem to be, what do they call it, bridges or canals from one thing to another. It's really good.
I think our careers kept crossing.
Yeah.
And
then I got a chance to play with your big band.
Yeah. And well, even before that, I think the first gig we did together was for Carl Thomas. He was a singer, and we.
Oh yeah.
I was his conductor and arranger.
Yeah.
And I had to put a band together, for his shows, and you were.
I was the keyboard player.
Yeah. We finally got. We kept missing each other with all these bands and everything.
Yeah.
But we finally hooked up with Carl Thomas, and then of course with my big band.
And then John Lennon.
I was just going to say that. You
go.
both were on the Walls and Bridges album,
right.
but I guess not at the same time. They didn't record
That's another interesting thing. John, we had done the rhythm section dates at Record Plant, and I'm trying to think. we had done the strings, and John and I would get together, and he would sing me what he wanted me to write for the strings. And what I found very interesting about John remembered everything. In those days, we had a little time in between the meeting and the recording, and we needed it for the copyist because there was a lot of notes to copy. And John would sing me the lines he wanted, and I would say things to him like, "In that register, it's not going to be heard." And John would say, "Well, I just want to hear those notes. I don't care where you put them. Oh, wow. You can orchestrate them wherever you think they should be." And then I would go home and write them and then give them to the copyist. And this, I think, there was probably 7, 8 days of time in between our meeting and then the recording. When we recorded these charts for the strings, he remembered everything he sang me. This was not a person who just had an idea for that particular day. He remembered everything. So I always got the feeling that John Lennon and Paul McCartney and possibly George too heard the record, not just the song. When they wrote, they heard the production. Yeah. And with George Martin, I think it was very organized in their parts. And they, of course, they tried and they were creative in the studio, but it was an insight into John's musicality that he knew what he wanted.
Yeah, I loved working with John. He did know what he wanted.
Yeah. Another modest man, by the way, I think. I found him to be, for all his fame, amazing.
Same here. We spent a lot of time together after the sessions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He would be walking across town to go back home.
Yeah.
And I would be walking across town to jump on the subway. And these were like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes after recording all day.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to know John. He was a great guy.
Oh, yeah. Tremendous, again, great talent and modest and just fun to be around. So funny. But as I said, I mean, just anybody who remembers 10 days ago what they told you of every tune, not just, we would go in, in those days, we'd record 3 or 4 tunes in a session, overdub them. And he remembered everything. And I said, well, he knows what he wants, this guy.
Yeah.
Well, talking about a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
He stuck his face in the copying machine one day and 2 photostats, he hits the button. I'm thinking, my God, he's going to go blind. What is he doing?
Yeah.
And these 2 photostats come sliding out. And I still have them.
Oh, yeah.
And he hands it to me. He says, here, he says, someday it's going to be worth a lot of money. He's saying,
From his lips to God's
But I love John. He was great to work with, but I'm sure you have some questions.
Yeah.
No, I was just interested about, no, actually, no. Ron talks about the composing process a lot of times, and we had seen a movie one time and I was laughing about it because I think it was a movie with Mozart composing. He was hearing the entire thing in his head and just, right, yeah.
Well, Mozart was famous, apparently, in his day, famous for, even if he hadn't written the music, he could go hear a piece written by, in this case, Salieri. I think it was Amadeus,
right,
the movie and the play. And he could literally, after hearing it once, he could play it back to you. Or if he had to, he probably could write it out.
Genius.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was, this is talk about genius. He's a great example of genius. But being a composer is an interesting, it's a different hat for me. I'm a player. I love playing for good singers. Obviously, I'm here.
Sweet.
And
what a charmer.
She's not bad.
No. I mean,
pretty good.
So I was when you asked me about what do you want to talk about, one of my favorite things is to play for good singers. There are certain musicians who don't like to do that.
That's true. Yes.
But I happen to love it. I feel like when we're in sync, I'm supportive to the lead singer. However, if we're making the right kind of music, I don't feel sublimated. I feel that this is all one thing, and it's magical. I think when it happens.
It is. It absolutely is. There is nothing better than the feeling of making that connection when you're singing.
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
nothing.
what I think that too.
Yeah.
I have a question. I've done some composing, light composing compared to what you've had some success with some of the songs you've written, a lot of success. I was always wondering, when you were co-writing those hits that you had, which we're going to hear in a little bit, what comes first? I think a lot of people would like to know this. What comes first? The music, the lyrics, the melody?
Okay. This is not how Paul and I worked on these particular songs. Sammy Kahn used to joke. They'd say, what came first, the lyrics or the music? He wrote with Julie Stein. He wrote with Jimmy Van Heusen, amongst other people. And he said the phone call comes first. But he was talking about an era also. If Sinatra wanted a tune, there would be a call from either Frank Sinatra or his manager or whatever saying Frank wants a tune for an album or whatever, a movie. With Paul and I, we wrote at the same time. We would talk. Either in his den, or if we happened to be on the road, we'd be in a hotel room, and we'd be talking about things, and it may have had nothing to do with the song that we were going to write. I remember talking about Babe Ruth one time, and Paul turned to me and he said, "What does Babe Ruth have to do with this song?" And I said, "Well, it's not Babe Ruth, it's how Babe Ruth made me feel." I'm too young to remember seeing Babe Ruth, except I've seen him on television and film. And of course, his reputation made it so that he was the king, the Sultan of Swat. He was the man, and as we say now, he was the guy. And I said, when Babe would come to the plate, there would be this incredible excitement. That's what I think Babe Ruth has to do with this song. It's the emotion that you feel from what Babe generated. We used another example of, there's a scene in To Kill a Mockingbird where the Reverend is in the courtroom and the two children, Jim and Scout, are sitting near him. And at the end of the court day, the Reverend says to the two children, "Stand up, that's your father walking out." And it gave both Paul and I chills. Yeah. And every once in a while, we would be in the middle of writing a song, and we'd look at each other and know, without having to say a word, that we were looking for the emotion that steered in us, that one scene. And I still think about that. That's just still, I guess for a lot of people, that's just, the book and the movie of To Kill a Mockingbird are just so fantastic. You know?
Your collaborations with Paul. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I said, we wrote at the same time. We would pace and needle each other in a good way. I would play a succession of a melody or a succession of chords, and Paul would turn to me sometimes and say, "That's not you. That's not." Well, I think what he meant was, "That's not what I think you can really do." Oh. And I would pace, and I remember a lot of, I was going to say miles in his den, which is right up the music room where we worked. Pace back and forth, and he would tell me a line, and I mean, I'd be walking, listening, words would come to me. What about this word? What about that word? Or I'd give him a scene from a movie or something. Yeah. And so this, I guess the word symbiotic, working together, happened so wonderfully. And it was intense, but it wasn't tense at all. It was relaxed and it was free-flowing, almost like jazz, in that sense. We were committing to something. When you write an arrangement, you sit down, you commit to it when you're writing it, of course. Well, we were committing to these lyrics and these notes and these chord changes, but we would, the first time we wrote anything, I was in London, my work permit didn't come through.
That's what I read. That's so
And
funny.
all of a sudden, Paul turned to me, we went to lunch. Actually, that morning we went to an antique fair, an outdoor antique fair, which I didn't want to, because I, at the time, knew nothing about antiques and still don't know that much, but they serve tea trucks and you walk, they serve tea in these tea trucks and you walk around the stalls outdoors. It was chilly, but you sip on the tea and you get warmed up and you walk around and you see all these beautiful things. And that afternoon we came back and went to lunch at the Inn on the Park. And then we came back to where we were staying, and Paul said, "Let's write a song." And I said, "Gee, well, I'm your piano player. Do you really?" He said, "No, let's see what happens." We sat down and we wrote a song called "Nilsson Sings Newman," Actually, we wrote the song. It was a 52-second song, literally 52 seconds, and it was done in the style of Randy Newman and Harry Nilsson. Do you love me, babe? Do you love me not? Let's decide in the morning now. And Paul sang it like Randy when we recorded it. And I turned to Paul and I said, what about we do that with just a tack piano, a bass, and a drum? And what would happen if on the album it would be like you were sitting in a movie theater watching the old-fashioned newsreels, and then the curtains come apart and you see CinemaScope come across the screen, and now you're on the big screen. And he looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, what if we went from tack piano, bass, and drum to orchestra? He says, well, what? And I played bum, 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 bum. And we were on a roll. I played the intro to You and Me Against the World. We wrote that. Wow. We structured it that day in London. We finished it a little bit in, where were we, Kansas City or St. Louis or something. And Paul was finessing as we went.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you'll honor me by playing
of course.
that song first.
Let's go make music.
So let's get to hear.
Yeah.
What resulted from that?
Well, we had originally, whatever.
You want to do Rainbow?
Sure. Or maybe, yeah, okay.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows? And what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions. And rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on a morning star? Somebody thought of that, and someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? And what do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me, all of us under its spell. We know it's probably magic. Have you been half asleep, and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is it the sweet voice that calls the young sailors? It might be one and the same. I've heard them too many times to ignore them. Probably what I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. The lovers, the dreamers, and me.
Bless you. You are not only a stunning arranger and composer, but a wonderful accompanist. Oh, thank you. Rainbow Connection, that was his collaboration with Paul Williams, of course, and another one which
is something that I remember also that you recorded. I guess you arranged the album for Helen Reddy. Here Comes, I'm not sure if we still have our microphones on. Okay.
You and me against the world. Sometimes it seems like you and me against the world. When all the others turn their backs and walk away, you can count on me to stay. Remember when the circus came to town and I was frightened by the clown? It was so nice to be around someone that I knew, someone who was big and strong and looking out for you and me against the world. Sometimes it feels like you and me against the world. And for all the times we've cried, I always felt that the odds were on our side. Has gone, one is left alone to carry on. Then remembering we'll have to do, our memories alone will see us through. Think about the days of me and you and me against the world. Circus, they underpay and overwork us, and while we seldom get our due, when the day is through, I bring my tired body home and look around for you and me against the world. Sometimes it feels like you and me against the world. And for all the times we've cried, I always felt like God was on our side. And when one of us is gone and one is left alone to carry on, then remembering we'll have to do, our memories alone will see us through. Think about the days of me and you and me against the world. You and me against the world.
Thank you. Mr. Ken Ascher.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was originally recorded by Helen Reddy, I believe.
Originally by Paul.
Oh,
Interesting
did not
story.
know
Helen was having tremendous success at that time. Paul was recording for A&M, and we wanted it to be Paul's single on the album. And he called me one day. I'd been back in New York for about a month, and he said, "You know, we got a call from A&M's publisher who published that song, and Helen wants to record it."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, Paul," I said, "we can do whatever you want to, but that was going to be your single." And he said, Paul was very wise and smart. He said, "Let's not be foolish. If she wants to record it, we should let her." You know, I was trying to we loved the recording of what we had done, and I said, "Gee, maybe you'll have a hit on your own, you know." And he said, "No, Helen's having hits right now. Let's go with what we know, you know, with her."
Yes.
And so he very unselfishly said, "Of course," and I said, "Of course." And then we were fortunate because Helen did such a wonderful job with that song.
Okay, they're telling us that we have about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And before we run out of time, I have to mention A Star is Born.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful experience to be, let's see, how do I describe this? To be sitting next to Barbra Streisand almost every day, rehearsing, getting the melody just so for her. She knows her voice very well. She's very smart. She's very hardworking. I think she works harder. We all had our jobs to do, but she was coordinating all these different things. And after I was rehearsing with her, she would have a meeting with Polly Platt, who was, I think, in charge of something to do with the scenery and the sets and all this. Anyway, to sit next to Barbara while she's singing, it was an interesting thing that happened. When I hear something that really I love, sometimes I will laugh. It just makes me feel joy. And the first time I did that with Barbara, she looked at me and said, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "I'm laughing because."
Are you laughing at me?
No, yeah, well, you know, it was anything but that. And I said, you know, I am so filled with joy when I hear you sing and how you phrase. You're not just singing the notes, you're singing the music and the emotion, that it just made me laugh out loud because it is so good. And then we would get into certain working sessions where she would be sitting usually to my right, and out of the corner of my eye I would see her, and she'd be looking out of the corner of her eye as she was singing, and we would break up because we were now thinking that we were going to both crack up because it was very, the feeling of working together was really good. It was just a nice period of my life that I enjoyed so much.
That's wonderful. Now she was looking for your laugh and your joy.
Well, yeah, in a way, we knew that after we had talked about this, that if I happened to break out in laughter, it was very positive.
Astonishingly, I think we're just about done here, which is amazing to me.
Very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
I wish we had about 2 more hours.
I know.
Oh, it's so much fun to talk, and especially with people who I respect and admire musically and as friends. So.
Thank you. And you're heading out to Birdland Jazz Club now?
I'm going to Birdland. I wanted to say a quick promotion for Birdland. The Birdland Big Band is there from 5 to 7 on Friday afternoon, evenings. And if you get a chance, those of you who may be seeing this, please come in. You'll enjoy it. It's a powerful big band, and we have a wonderful time. It's great company, and I think of the audience as sort of an extended family because there are a lot of people that keep coming back. It's a great way to start the weekend.
We want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And again, thanks so much to Ginger Broderick for asking us to guest host. And you've been watching the Ginger New York show today. This is Ron Apria. I'm Angela De Niro, and we've been honored to have jazz pianist, arranger, composer, Mr. Ken Ascher with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Thanks so much, Ken.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Great.
Very smooth.
Stay put.
Okay.
One of the other things is when unfortunately, we had some camera issues in the beginning, so we have to redo your opening.
That's fine
Okay?
because I screwed it up anyway.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even notice.
Well, bless
It sounded,
So maybe you tape like
Sure, that would be
another 5
amazing.
minutes. Okay,
Sure.
we're going to set up the
Is that okay?
I'm going to switch. I'll give you the cue to start again.
Okay.
What did we talk about in that first 5 minutes?
Well, we just did our opening. That's all right, just the opening.
No, I want you to do the opening and maybe a couple minutes of conversation.
Oh,
You're welcome. Now,
okay.
when the thing is when you welcome him,
Yeah. You want us to shake hands? Yeah, I forgot about that.
he probably won't be able to, but you should shake hands.
I'll shake
we'll
your
do
hand.
this,
There you go.
and I'll wave.
Okay.
Blow him a kiss.
Yeah, there you go.
Remember, I take stills from the film, so I'm looking
Okay.
for things visual as
But,
well.
but the
But it
camera.
went really well.
Okay, but the show is done. In other words,
Yeah,
they're
no,
just doing this so
we'll
we have
do
something.
this insert
Yeah.
for you.
Right, so
Great,
we're
okay.
going to just retake the beginning.
Okay.
Do like 5 minutes of conversation. I'm going to change the media, so don't start until I tell you. We're
Okay,
gonna get
sure.
there, okay?
All right. What did we start talking about the last time?
Well, you had the first question. I
No.
think it was.
Oh, we don't.
You
No.
wanna, I don't know if they can play that back so we can hear. Can we hear a playback of the first 5 minutes?
I
or-
don't think she can.
Okay.
I think that was the problem. But I think they
missed
have.
it.
But I think that Lula has it on Facebook Live.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
if you don't mind it, thank you.
Oh,
Well, I
that's
have
good.
to tell you.
Is that what we're doing over?
Nice, and
Yeah.
they're so good about it. I said, well, just watch Facebook. That'll be fine.
When Angela was doing her first album, we
to
were
have
mixing it
something
over
like
at Sony. And my partner in that project, he would take me around the Sony building, and he brought us into this big sound room, and he was explaining how, this is the early days of the internet, I guess, and he was explaining how they get their artists and they put them up on the stage and it goes all over the world. And I'm thinking, like, how can that be?
Yeah.
And now we can do it with our cell phone.
I know. I
A lot better.
I just have to think.
Oh, scared me.
What we talked about was we started with Frank.
Yeah.
Frank, Woody, and Lennon was how we started the
Yeah,
show.
right. I was thinking that. I don't think I had anything to do with it. I think you
No,
just.
you did. You brought up the Lennon part.
Yeah.
That was
we
later,
were talking
yeah.
about Frank and Woody Herman, and you said, and John Lennon.
Yeah. We can do that.
That was after, but I think by that time that was way past the 5
Yeah.
minutes. You started with your
I
collaboration
think
with
it was
Frank.
with Frank.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we could talk about Frank for at least 5 minutes, but
At
we'll
least
we'll
5 minutes.
dovetail it into the Woody stuff, and
Okay.
I think it'll be okay.
You know, you are just terrific. You made it so easy. You know, we're thinking, what happens if we run out of questions and everything? And
I said it would be kind of like being on a club date and playing every song you knew in the first 5 minutes. Then what? You know, it's like,
The old
unfortunate with that.
joke, and we've all, I guess we feel this way sometimes. I felt this way. Someone says, "Gee, you play a great solo," you know, and it says, "Gee, it sounds like you've played." That was such a great solo. You played everything you knew, or I said, "Yeah, I just played everything I ever knew."
John, I got to go home now.
I said, "I have nothing else to say. I'm finished after the first tune."
and a few that I just learned in the middle of the
Yeah,
song.
exactly.
Jeez.
You know, it's just well, with people who you know, it's like being socially comfortable under these circumstances, especially because it's easy to go the other way. You know, and I always tell myself, slow down, let yourself think as you're speaking. It will be natural. Yeah. Sometimes I come into certain situations and I'm pressing, and I say, oh, wait a minute.
We start talking too fast, right?
Well, or
That happens.
trying to think I'm getting ahead of myself, and then I realize, no, slow it down a little bit, and then get yourself coasting in whatever direction you want to go in.
Yeah.
I
Well, this
have-
was good. This was
It was
It was very
smooth.
relaxed.
Very
Yeah.
relaxed, very smooth.
Okay.
Quiet on the set.
Quiet on the
So we're
set.
ready to go.
Okay.
Angela and Ron, I want you to redo your opening.
You got it.
Talk to camera number one.
All right, yeah, I
and
did
then,
forget about
I
that.
will talk for up to about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then we're going to do the songs again, okay? So
Okay.
I thought they were really good. We're just doing a take 2.
Sure.
Okay? So,
Okay.
But did that go out live already?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is, do you mind doing them? Do you have time to do them again?
I'll do it
Okay.
again.
Okay,
I'll
fine.
do it again.
I thought they came out all right, though.
So, we really enjoyed it. We really
Oh,
enjoyed it. Okay, so whenever you're ready,
Can I just,
start and talk for about 5 minutes, okay?
Going into those key changes,
Stand by.
just push a little harder.
I wasn't sure. That was why I didn't. I'm apologizing. Say it again, hun.
We're ready for you to start.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be quiet then.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Angela De Niro.
And I'm Ron Apria, and this is Ginger, New York.
We are honored to be guest hosting for Ginger Broderick today and delighted to have as our guest an amazing jazz pianist, arranger, composer who has crossed over many musical genres and very successfully, I might add.
And Kenny has worked with John Lennon, Yoko Ono, and Meatloaf, and Paul Williams.
As well as Woody Herman and Frank Foster and the Lou Anderson Big Band, and has been performing weekly at the world-famous Birdland Jazz Club for about 16 years now. So, without further ado, we'd like to welcome musician extraordinaire
Thank
and
you.
our good friend, Mr.
Thank
Ken
you.
Ascher.
I can't reach.
No, okay.
Here we go. High five from a distance. Okay. Thank you for asking, and it's delighted to be here. And we share one of my earliest experiences with Frank Foster,
That's right.
who you knew much better than I. But I happened to be I was in college, and I remember my friend at college, George Claiborne, was a young engineer, even at that time, quite professional. He had a Crown tape recorder, stereo, 2-track, and he would have people come into Woolman Auditorium, Warren Chasson, Roger Kellaway's group, the Frank Foster Orchestra. And the day that Frank's band came in, there was a mix-up. The piano player didn't come right away. There was a mix-up in scheduling, apparently. And George, being a crusader of when he thought somebody had talent, he just went right over to Frank and said, well, until the piano player gets here, my friend will play the piano, you know, and would that be okay? And Frank said, yeah, okay. And my heart was beating like amazing. And the piano player, whatever happened with his scheduling, never did come that day. He thought it was another day. So I got to play my first recording session that day. You were there. We didn't know each other then. It was the first time that we had played music together. I was joking about it. I said, I don't think I fell asleep for 3 days after finishing that session, because this music and the band was so good, and Frank being so nice and so generous about all this, came over, and Benny Powell, may he rest in peace, was in the band that day, and I met so many people and had a wonderful time. And later that year, I was back in Atlanta and scheduled to do a gig. I had a television show with a singer that was supposed to do a daily show, and with the same singer, we had a nighttime job. And all of a sudden, I got a phone call from Woody Herman's manager, and he said, Frank Foster just subbed with the band. We're looking for a piano player. He recommended you.
It's amazing.
And I turned to my father. I said, what do I do about this other gig? I've got to tell you know, there's these gigs in Atlanta. And my dad said, you know, I think you should go with Woody. So somehow, the gentleman was very gracious, the person I was going to be working with, and so I went off to Detroit and joined Woody, thanks to Frank Foster. And when I think about it, I can trace that particular series of events, my friend George Claben and Frank Foster, to Woody, right up till now, sitting here with the two of you, because everything seemed to follow from that particular happenstance. So I felt like the cliche, as I've said before, the cliche of being in the right place at the right time was just wonderful. And I think about it, not 24/7, but I do think about it. It occurs to me and how fortunate I am. I'm one of these people who love to practice, so I wake up in the morning saying, oh good, I can shower and shave, and then I can have some cup of coffee, and I get to play the piano today, which is a great thing. So, you know.
It's interesting that that Frank Foster was the angel in both of your lives in that respect, because
Yeah.
I know he got you on Woody's band also.
That's true. Oh, yeah, well, my friendship with Frank Foster goes back to when I was a kid. I was, I guess, about 18 or 19 years old, and I used to go down to Birdland all the time. Birdland.
Oh, yeah.
When it was on Broadway.
Yeah,
Original
Broadway.
And then Basie's band would always be at Birdland, sometimes for a month at a time around the holidays, and I would be there every night. And it was a thrill for me just to talk to Frank Foster. He was already an international star.
Oh, absolutely. And that was one of the great Basie bands of all time.
It
Frank
sure
West,
was.
Frank Foster.
You bet.
I think Joe Newman and
Thad Jones.
and Thad.
And Sonny Payne,
Jones.
of course. And
Oh, yeah, tremendous band.
Freddie Green.
Snooky.
Snooky Young.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
In fact, Benny Powell. A lot of the guys from that band actually played in Frank's
That's right.
first band.
That's right.
Which I was in. I would be sitting in the sax section looking at all my heroes. I said, I thought I was dreaming this.
Oh, that's what I said. I was so excited having done that, you know, and it finally, after 3 or 4 days, I started to come down, and and it was wonderful.
Let's talk a little bit about.
I think we've
I
been
know,
invited. Oh, okay. I'm
about-
sorry.
Talk a little bit about a couple of the songs you wrote.
Oh,
In
yeah.
fact, before we do that, why don't you and Angela
Okay.
perform them?
Sure.
Okay.
You and Me Against the World. I think you can do first.
Okay, I believe so, sure.
Oh, you want to do that first? Okay.
Oh, actually,
Whatever.
no.
Yeah. The two songs that we're going to do are collaborations that, of course, are Ken Ascher's and Paul Williams. And the first is one of my favorites, and sung by my hero, Kermit the Frog, of course.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it, but I know they're wrong. Wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on a morning star? Somebody thought of that, someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? What do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell. We know that it's probably magic. Have you been half asleep? Have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is it the sweet voice that calls the young sailor? They might be one and the same. I've heard them too many times to ignore them. Probably what I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. The lovers, the dreamers, and me.
One of my favorites. Thank you so much. The next song is something that you also co-wrote with Paul Williams, and I remember it as having been sung by, of course, Helen Reddy. And one of my favorite songs, You and Me Against the World.
You and me against the world. Sometimes it feels like you and me against the world. When all the others turn their backs and walk away, you can count on me to stay. Remember when the circus came to town and you were frightened by the clown? Wasn't it nice to be around someone that you knew? Someone who was big and strong and looking out for you and me against the world. Sometimes it feels like you and me against the world. And for all the times we've cried, I always felt the odds were on our side. Is left alone to carry on, then remembering we'll have to do. Our memories alone will see us through. Think about the days of me and you and me against underpay and overwork us. And though we seldom get our due, when the day is through, I bring my tired body home and look around for you. You and me against the world. Sometimes it feels like you and me against the world. But for all the times we've cried, I always felt that God was on our side. And when one of us is gone and one is left alone to carry on, then remembering we'll have to do, our memories alone will see us through. Think about the days of me and you and me against the world. You and me against the world. Thank you.
I need singers really bad. Female singers. Yeah.
Excuse me, Texie.
Yes.
Somebody turned off the media, so I didn't get the shots that I wanted. So would you go back and take photos with her?
Okay.
And Kenny, okay? 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 Jennifer?
Yes.
Somebody turned off the media? Okay, so, we have to redo these shots, so Kenny, stay there. Pepsi, would you please get on here and get, because we're, we got 5 minutes.
Anyway, I wanted to know if we could interview you.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Life is interesting. Everybody take a couple steps that way. One more. One more. That's perfect. Okay, now squinch down, keep your heads up and look to me. Down more, step me down more. The other two are fine. Yeah, that's it, and look up.
You know, you're not getting his whole goal. You're
Whoops.
not getting the whole goal.
Whoops. There you go.
And here, Kenny, can I get the paper out of your hand? Yeah. Okay. Are we?
You're good.
There you go.
That's nice. Okay, I'm happy now.
Okay.
Okay, when you're doing your show, I had the door open. There was no lights. Please don't have no lights.
How you doing?